Fame is a Russian player for the team K23. This team used to be known as Simon Gaming until August of 2020, which I'm sure is a brand more people are familiar with at this point. Fame is the youngest member of the team at only 18 years of age. He signed with K23 in January of this year from SG Pro, and has quickly become one of the most exciting prospects in the CIS region, who isn't on one of those top 4 or 5 teams that have already established themselves. Fame was recommended to me by Mirzach, who seemed quite irate that I didn't bring up Fame in my CIS Sleeping Dragon video a couple months ago. To make it up to Mirzach, Fame will be the player who debuts this new series. I'll cover his playstyle, his skill set, and give some thoughts about his overall future. I'm T, this is Fame, and welcome to Prospects. Fame's skill set is pretty typical of a young, highly skilled player. His aim is crisp, especially with pistols and the AK, which allows him to rack up frags against all level of opponents. Fame is also very confident, as many young players are, always willing to push for information and take opening fights. His borderline cockiness can lead to the occasional sloppy play, as in this round on Overpass where he almost dies because he didn't wait for his smoke to bloom before moving deeper into connector. At other times he'll re-peek and go for multi-kills when they really aren't necessary. Sure, he gets the kill in this round, but it's not the right play in the long run. Thankfully, this side of the game is typically held in check by the in-game leader Neelan and the veteran presence of Adren. Early in rounds, Fame is fighting for map control, be it Banana on Inferno or A ramp on Vertigo. The exception to this rule is a map like Overpass, where on T side there are fewer favourable engagements to be found in early rounds, and map control has been taken slower and more methodically. On Overpass, Fame does a rather poor impersonation of Mezzy, sitting at the back of connector and boring me half to death. Unlike Mezzy, Fame still plays a more forward role in the eventual executes, rather than being left behind to be more of a closer. When K23 do eventually execute onto a bomb site, Fame is typically about the second man in, increasing his chances of getting multi-kill and allowing him to attempt the occasional clutch. He does of course play the hard entry sometimes, but it's more typical to see him behind someone like Adren or Neelan who are taking the first contact. Inferno is a slight exception to this, as Fame is left to lurk around mid and second mid when the team takes A. In this scenario, he does play more of the closing role, though it's a rare luxury to have Fame alive so late in a round, as he's often dead at the top of Banana by the time the bomb is planted. Fame's CT side works in 2 steps. First, anti-rush nades. His utility on Vertigo and Overpass fit this description perfectly. On Vertigo, he's responsible for the small side of ramp. On typical rounds, he'll throw this molly and then nade into the same area if he hears something that indicates a ramp push. Similarly on Overpass, he mollies the short tunnel to prevent rushes and gain audio cues. Inferno, again, slightly different. He typically stands a bit further back and flashes for 2 players who will tend to aggress into Banana before actually taking the fight or throwing mollies and nades. All of this leads us quite logically into the next step, which is info. Fame is responsible for gathering information in these areas. On Overpass, he does this by nading the connector door off, then jump spotting short and connector. The nature of Vertigo makes it a little more difficult for a CT to play like that. You're gonna die if you try jump spotting over and over again. Fame makes up for this by playing aggressive angles, listening for sound cues, and finally, one of K23's favourite ploys, aggressive peeks supported by a pop flash. Fame is a natural born aggressor, so K23 have harnessed this by having players throw pop flashes for him to peek into areas of the map. Not only does this garner information, it also allows Fame to take favourable duels with his fantastic aim. It can get predictable, but it is effective, interrupting the Ts as they set up for executes and occasionally winning rounds outright. The confidence I mentioned earlier comes back into play here, as Fame also likes to hold some very aggressive positions. On Vertigo, he sits on this spot on pistol, and on rounds where Ts are likely to have a low buy. It's an attempt to farm kills, as Fame believes he can outduel any opponent. I see Fame as a player who can fit into similar roles to that of Mir on Team Spirit. With his aim and his love of all things aggro, Fame could be one of those super high impact riflers that teams just build their entire playstyle around. It is true though that there are many facets of his game that still require development. Not only does he have the occasional fit of folly and almost get himself killed for nothing, but Fame's playstyle is quite predictable and quite readable right now if you watch his demos. This becomes an issue at the higher levels of competition. However, we're getting ahead of ourselves. K23 are a decent enough team, with a trio of young players who are quite possibly future stars, but they aren't going to break into the upper echelons of Counter-Strike in 2021. Still, Fame is a player who is quite exciting to watch, and K23 as a squad are one of the most fascinating teams outside of the top 30. I'd recommend you keep an eye on this CIS squad, if not only for Fame, but for the other young players they have on there. Norbert is already looking like a very explosive, round-winning player, and Neelan's development as an in-game leader, alongside now Adren, is going to be quite fascinating. I hope you enjoy the new format for these demo reviews. I'm trying to make it into a new series, because they're quite interesting to make, and it's quite fun to see how different players play. I'm going to be focusing on young players who haven't quite cracked the top tier of Counter-Strike. These players typically have less tape on them, less following, and I think a lot of them need more attention. Leave a like if you enjoyed the video, leave a comment telling me if you have any thoughts on Fame or what you've seen from the demos I've shown, subscribe if you want to see more, and yeah, that's all for this one. Goodbye.